Greetings from high above the Emerald City in the heart of Petropolis. I'm Jason Rigdon, and you are listening to the Podcast of Mystery, the show that always leaves you with more questions than answers. The podcast where I talk with extraordinary guests about the paranormal, the strange, and the unknown. I've got an all Bigfoot episode for you today. I'll be talking with an eyewitness who is now gathering other first-hand accounts of encounters with Sasquatch. Then I'll be talking to a scientist who is using GIS to map and better understand Bigfoot sightings. But first, I've got this quick message. Have you had a paranormal experience? Have you seen Bigfoot yourself? Or maybe you've seen a ghost, a UFO, or maybe something far stranger. Lots of folks have said that they would like to come on the Podcast of Mystery to share their strange experience, but they don't think the story of their experience will fill 20 minutes. Others are a little bit intimidated by actually coming on and being interviewed. If this sounds like you, then I've got something you might be interested in. Right now, on this episode, I'm announcing the Mystery Hotline, a toll-free number for you to share your encounters with the unknown. Just call 1-888-726-0055. Leave me a message and I will play it on a future episode of the Podcast of Mystery. Oh, and if you're outside the United States, you probably know these 1-800 numbers are kind of funny. So you can also leave me a message on my international line at 206-649-4323. Once again, I want to hear your stories of the strange, the unknown, and the paranormal. Call the Mystery Hotline right now with your story at 1-888-726-0055.
So my name's Russ, and I live in I live down in the Olympia area of Washington State. I grew up in the Seattle area over in Bellevue, which I think you're in Seattle, Jason, from what I could tell.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Excellent, man. I love that city. But I've been, traveling the world, most continents, and I lived overseas for a while, lived in China for a while, had some excellent experiences visiting the wilderness there. And right now what I do is I'm writing a book, and I decided it was about a year ago, I decided to kick off a book. I've wanted to write a book for about 20 years, but I had no idea. And as cliche as this sounds, it's because I read the Harry Potter series, and I know what that sounds like, but I just loved how it drew me in as a young adult. And I thought that was awesome, and it actually changed me. And right now I give classes online. I spend 8 hours a week analyzing the deeper meaning behind J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, which has been cool. So ask me anything Harry Potter, I might have an answer for you. And I am a Slytherin, by the way. But I thought, what a cool thing. And something happened to me when I was 14, when I was out in the woods, I was 14, and happened in the Cascade Mountains. I was recalling it with my father, and I thought it was in the Olympic Peninsula up near, past Hurricane Ridge, and it actually happened in the Cascades, which is interesting, but it's because I would go hiking all the time growing up there, Boy Scouts, all the good stuff. And so I decided to write a book, and the book is, I'll give you the premise real quickly. It's about a boy. He's 14 years old. It happens in April of 1980 in the Dark Divide, which is the area between Mount St. Helens and Mount Adams, the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. And I don't want to give too much away, but it starts with him surviving a horrific accident, and he is lost. He doesn't know where he is, and he gets rescued by an elder from the Cowlitz tribe, and meets his niece from the Yakima tribe. She's also Cowlitz too. But because the Cowlitz and the Yakima tribe intermarry, and they have for thousands of years, actually. So it's this whole adventure. And during this time, he discovers or is discovered by Sasquatch. And so I'm writing this book, and I'm trying to pay a lot of respect to the Native American culture, because a lot of Bigfoot lore that's out there that I've found is mostly it's chasing after the bent trees and the cracking on wood and all that stuff. And then, as we discussed a bit earlier before we started, you have the people that are very much into the paranormal side of it as well. And so there's all those spectrums from one to the other. And so I wanted to go from the approach of the Native American culture and history, while being respectful, while not sharing things that Native Americans may feel is not to be shared, if you know what I mean. So one of my neighbors she has worked as a Native American advocate. She worked in the White House for about 10 years for the Bush administration, the Clinton administration. And I was telling her about my story, and she said, "Oh, I've got a guy for you." I said, "Oh, a guy for me. Cool." She goes, "Yeah, let me give you this name." And I won't release it here on the podcast, but he's become a very good friend of mine. And so she gave me his name, and I called him. And I said, "Listen, I'm writing this book. I don't know much about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, anything like that. I'm starting from scratch." And all of a sudden, after about 12 hours and 4 recording sessions, the stories that have come out of this gentleman's mouth are mind-blowing. He is an elder from the Yakima tribe. And I've learned so much about Native American culture when it comes to Sasquatch, Kushkanu, whatever you want to call from the Tlingit tribe, whatever you want to call Bigfoot. And I said, is it weird to call them Bigfoot? He goes, no. Bigfoot's fun. We don't care. I said, "Oh, okay." And, it's been a really interesting adventure for me. And my 6th-time great-grandfather is actually Cherokee. So it's been a very cool connection back to my very small heritage far away, to learn more about the Native American approach to this. And so I called him, and we talked for a while, and he said, "We're going on a camping trip." And I thought, "Oh, that sounds kind of fun. I'll go on a camping trip. I don't know you, but I guess I trust you. We've gotten to know each other." So I packed up my car and decided to head off. And he said, "Well, come join us. And we're going to be over in Bumping Lake." And Bumping Lake is notorious for Sasquatch sightings, Bigfoot sightings. And I can't remember the name of the exact campsite. I think it's Rock Point. Anyway, anybody that knows the Pacific Northwest Sasquatch culture knows exactly where I'm talking about. So I drove over, packed up the car, like I said, and drove over. And it's dark. It's rainy. This is in a rainy, beautiful Pacific Northwest September afternoon. It's cloudy. It's dark. You can imagine I'm listening to freaky music because that's what I do to myself. A little Heilung and a little Fordruna, if you know those old Norse bands, pretty cool stuff. And my cell phone carrier I have T-Mobile, doesn't stretch that far. So I have to go another hour and a half without any cell phone coverage as I get onto these logging roads, going to meet people I don't know, going to learn about Sasquatch and Bigfoot. And the panic is setting in, and I haven't even gotten out of my car. And as I get out beyond this area, I'm starting to get into these rocky woods, and it was very daunting. And so I arrive at the camp, and I go and I meet my friend. He says, "Hey, it's nice to meet you. Here's a tent for you." I had brought my own. He says, "But you can bunk up with my work partner." And he works for a major government organization that works with the trees, and that's what I'll say. And I think listeners can figure out what that is. And so I'm unpacking, and he goes, "Hey, did you meet so and so?" And I said, "So and so." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "He's over there by the fire." And I look over to the fire, and there's 5 other people there this whole weekend. And lo and behold, it's a very fine gentleman sitting by the fire. And I'll just tell you this, without giving his name away, because I don't have permission to do that, but listeners will figure out who it is. Let's just say that in the 60s, he filmed one of the most notorious videos that's out there in the world. So you know exactly who I'm talking about now. So I walk up to him and I say, "Oh my God, it's really nice to meet you. I have so many questions for you." And he just laughed and started talking about raising rattlesnakes as a kid and horseback riding. And it was the most lovely conversation I've had in a long time. It reminded me of speaking with my grandfather when I was very, very young. I should say my step grandfather, when I was very young, and just listening to stories. And it was an incredible, incredible event. So I'm at this camp. I don't know anybody. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm doing all this research for my book. I'm going to learn all these things. I'm going to put it in the book. It's going to be awesome. I'm starting to think, okay, my book is it's kind of sci-fi, but it's kind of naturalist, and it's a historical fiction a little bit because it takes place in April of 1980 for a month. And you know what happens in May of 1980? Mount St. Helens erupts. So that's kind of the climax of the book. But anyway, and that's not a mystery. It all happened to us. But so we're sitting there, and I guess, what I like to to tell you is a couple of the events that happened while I was there. I'm not going to assume what it was I saw, because I am a skeptic. I will always be a skeptic, even though I don't believe. I know. And I think Les Stroud, if you listen to Les Stroud talk about the difference between knowing and believing, he makes a really good point when he says, people say, oh, I believe in this, or I believe. Well, believing takes faith, and that's great. You can have faith. But when you gather all the scientific data that's out there, when you talk to Native Americans whose their history spans thousands and thousands of years, it becomes more than believing. It becomes a gathering of data and information that has led me to my conclusions that I know there is a being out there that we don't know everything about. We never will. I hope we never will. And I have my own opinions on that, which I can talk about later. But I think there is a beautiful, beautiful part of the world that we don't understand. I think we get maybe 1% of what's out there. Anyway, so we're having this chili cook-off, and it's great. And it's not chili cook-off. Well, actually, it was. A couple of people brought different chilies, so we were deciding which one was better. So I'm sitting there, no experience really, and I'm looking around at the 5, I think 6, maybe other people, including this very, very, very famous person in the Sasquatch Bigfoot community that everybody knows, and people are telling stories about either their first sightings, maybe they're talking about their first experiences. Everybody's telling these stories, and I'm sitting here going, I don't have any stories, and this is weird, but I'm blogging all of this for my book. And one person starts talking about his time being in the middle of nowhere and being surrounded on all 4 sides by whistles. Another one's talking about her story being over on the not Cannon Beach, over in Grace Harbor area near the Hoh Rainforest up in Ocean Shores. There you go. Sorry about that. Ocean Shores, talking about, the story of the old man and the old Sasquatch that would come and visit him on his porch. And my mind is blowing up right now, because I've listened to, your Sasquatch Chronicles and Sasquatch Syndicate, and I've listened to a couple podcasts like that. And so I'm hearing these stories. When you hear them first person and no one's recording and we're just gathering around listening and we're out of cell phone range, it's a whole different thing. And the rain is drizzling around us. It's dark. It's 6 p.m. and it's dark already. And I'm starting to panic. And I finally just look up and I say, listen, I came out here to get information. I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. I am panicked. So already I'm thinking, okay, my mind's playing tricks on me. My emotions are full tilt. What's going on here? Am I going to imagine things because of my adrenaline? Am I going to imagine things because I've had pictures now put in my head? So I'm trying to embrace the fact that I could be fooling myself if I experience anything, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. So,
I think so.
Yeah. And I think that happens to a lot of people, and that's okay. I mean, who knows if that's real or not real? We don't know. So anyway, so it's dark, it's pitch black, and we decide to hike up a little trail. And here I am, this middle-aged guy trying not to be like a toddler in the woods, scared, right? In the middle of nowhere. And it's quiet, and it's deafeningly quiet. Except for the raindrops. And I'm sitting here going, I should hear like birds or coyotes or elk walking through the trees. It's elk season. Why am I not hearing anything? It's like I was in a quiet room, which is daunting, very scary. So we're walking up this little pathway, and we walk up about 100 yards past the campsite into the darkness, and we stop. And my friend takes out night vision goggles. He says, hey, check these out. I went, oh, okay. It's a one-eyed night vision, kind of like a telescope type thing, but it's a night vision, one eye. So I start looking through it, and I'm blown. I've never used night vision before. I loved it. It's like green daytime. I thought it was so cool. And I'm looking around, and I take them down. We kind of talk and whisper and talk about life. And this was not a group who sits there and knocks on trees with sticks to attract any kind of being. This is not a group who whistles, who calls out. It was very respectful. It was quiet. I really felt like I was with people who understand nature more than most people. A couple of them would say, hey, we're here. We just want to let you know you're here today. And we respect you. And we thank you for letting us visit your home. And I thought, wow, now that is not like the documentaries I see of, other people that go off and take baseball bats out and hit on trees and try to attract them. I'm not putting that down at all. I'm just saying this was a different approach. So we're standing there, and it had to be 20 feet behind in the pitch black. I hear this big thump, and it was like a boulder was being dropped on wet ground. And I thought, oh, that's weird. I wonder if a log fell over. I wonder if a bear is nearby, because we do have black bears, here. I wonder if, an elk. And I looked at my friend. I said, and this is my elder from the Yakama Nation. I said, what is this? He goes, well, we're not alone. I said, well, yeah, I heard that. And we're all there, and nobody is back at the campsite. Everybody there, we're all in a little tight knit circle spanning about 3 feet. So there's nobody there. We're 20 miles from any other camper, maybe 10 miles. And we heard that single thump, and I said, what is it? Well, we're not alone tonight. I said, oh, maybe a bear, a bobcat, maybe something like that. He says, no, that's not it. But he never said what it was. And I asked him, I said, well, I heard one single thump. He goes, yeah. If it were not what we think it might be, you would hear moving off. You'd hear an elk walking away. You'd hear a bear going through the bushes. You wouldn't hear one single thump. And I'm kind of getting shivers thinking about that now, because I don't tell anybody this story. And we heard that thump, and then all of a sudden, I felt this shiver from this was kind of in front of me. I felt a shiver to my right, and I heard another thump at about a 90-degree angle from where the first thump was. And it was the same sounding thump, but it sounded like somebody had, I don't know, pushed a tree over, but it landed, and it didn't roll around. It was one thump, crash, crash, and it stopped. And it didn't sound like somebody running off. So you can imagine my heart was going 1,000 miles an hour right now. And here I am with people that have had multiple experiences, who felt at peace and were excited because they thought, oh, good, we're not alone. And we're in one of the most active areas in Washington State, which is, is one of the most active areas in the world, so they're thrilled. And so I did something that I still don't know if I should have done, but I did it anyway. I picked up the binocular, or not the binoculars, the night vision. I looked off to my left, and I saw something that has haunted me. And it was about maybe 150, 200 feet up a hill. And I saw the silhouette of a person. And I lowered the night vision, and I looked up again to make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks. And like I said before, who knows what tricks the mind plays on one, especially when your adrenaline is pumping. So I thought, oh, okay, my adrenaline's pumping. This is not happening. And I look, and it looks like the silhouette of a figure, and its right arm, or I guess it could be left arm if it was facing away, but I'm assuming it was facing us. Its right arm was lifted and holding on, like it was balancing out at a right angle on a tree, like it was leaning against a tree. And as I followed the shape of the dark shadow that looked like an arm, it went to a small bulb that looked like the top of a football, like that, like it was conical. And there was a definite definition of where it could have met. There was not much of a neck where it could have met these muscular shoulders. I'm seeing this outline. Now I say muscular only because the outline looked like a muscular person. It didn't look like, I couldn't see the muscles rippling within the silhouette, because again, it's a silhouette. And then I just stared at it for about 30 seconds, didn't see any movement. So I thought, oh, mine's playing tricks on me. No way. And I said to my friend, I said, I think there's something up there. And he goes, well, you never know. And so I looked again after about a minute, and the silhouette was still there, but the length of the arm was shorter, as if it had adjusted or moved. And that is when I started thinking, okay, there's got to be somebody from camp up there totally screwing with us. Everybody was with us. There was nobody that was not with us in the circle, except for that famous person I talked about earlier, we could see him down by the campfire. He was drinking a cup of coffee, I think, enjoying the wilderness. And so I started thinking, oh my God, what is this? And I take the binoculars down again. Or the night vision, people are talking. And I raise them up again about another 2 or 3 minutes. I raise them up, making sure blinking my eyes. I know your eyes can kind of play tricks on you. My other eye was doing fine because I hadn't been looking through the night vision. And so I used that eye, and I looked back with both eyes, and the silhouette was gone. It was absolutely gone. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, it was a shadow being cast by the moon, which, oh, look, there's no moon out tonight. Great. So there's no light source creating shadows. We had all our lights off. And then all of a sudden, and this is where people that would believe in paranormal, or maybe not paranormal, but that there's telepathy within Bigfoot, within Sasquatch. All of a sudden, my vision starts going blurry within the night vision. And I think, oh, my eyes are tired. They're not used to this. Okay, it's just going bad. It looks all scattery, kind of like the Matrix. The Matrix logo where you have the green lines falling down. Yeah, the binary code, whatever that is. It looks like that. So I give it to my friend and say, hey, check this out. Does it look like this to you? He goes, they're working perfectly. I thought, man, okay, something's wrong here. Let me turn them on, turn them off. He looked again. Nope, they're good. I looked through, and I had another person look. They were fine, and it wasn't working for me when I looked up in that area. And I'm obviously thinking, well, something's wrong with my vision, my eyes. But I take them down, and I can see, even in the darkness, I can still see, our feet and our hands. So my vision is fine. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, that, Bigfoot, there's a reason why we don't have them really on trail cams and really on phones, because they can manipulate time and space when it comes to electronics. They have this control, and because they have survived for thousands and thousands and maybe longer in the wilderness, their brains are developed quite differently than ours. And so they can manipulate and control things. So I thought, oh, okay, well, that would explain why this stopped working for me. If I, in fact, saw what I think I saw, then maybe there is that control. So this goes on. It's now about 9:30 at night, still fairly early. And I usually stay up till midnight. And everybody says, okay, let's go to bed. And I lose it. What? Go to bed? Come on, let's go to the campfire. Can we please stay up and talk? I'm scared. That kind of all those thoughts have going. I'm thinking we're not alone. We heard a thump. We heard it from two different angles. People that have had multiple experiences saying we're not alone. And I think I've seen a silhouette. Now I'm thinking, oh, maybe again, my mind's playing tricks on me. Here we go. Maybe my adrenaline's causing this to happen, but I don't know. I don't know about that. This just wasn't normal for me. I don't have a crazy imagination. I do have an imagination, but anyway, and I grew up in the woods hiking and backpacking, so I felt comfortable. So we go back to our tents, and I'm sitting there going, oh, come on. All right, here we go. So I get in my sleeping bag, and it's silent. And all you can hear is the drop, 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 rain hitting tarps. And it's creepy. I mean, it was like any horror film director would have loved to be there with the camera. It was perfect. It was just, John Carpenter would have killed for this back in the 80s. And so I'm laying there, and I'm panicked, and I'm so panicked that I put my headphones in. I'm like, I can't sleep. I downloaded the new Netflix show about the Challenger. And I was a kid when the Challenger exploded. So I thought, I'm going to watch this documentary because I don't want to hear what's going on out there. Everybody's trying to hear. They've set out magnets and toys and things for them to come and play with. And they say that they had visitors the night before we got there. This is too much for me. I'm panicked. So I put the headphones in, and I'm trying to watch this great documentary, which is fantastic. And listeners should definitely watch that. And so it's something I'm watching this, and I'm starting to fade off to sleep. And all of a sudden I hear this whoop, 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 whoop. And I have never really heard an owl before. So of course you can imagine my first thought is, oh my God, there's a Sasquatch whooping at us. I don't, to this day, don't know if that's what it was. I did talk to people the next day and saying, did you hear that whooping sound? Oh yeah, it was an owl. Everybody's saying it was an owl. And one of the people who is very experienced in the field of Sasquatch said it was an owl with raised eyebrows. Like, it's an owl, but I don't think it was an owl kind of look, So and I'm sitting here going, I've never gone out, quote unquote, Sasquatching before. So to have experiences, there's no way. So anyway, I'm laying there, and I hear that, and of course, heart races. I turn on the documentary again. I try to blank it all out, and at about 1:30, in fact, I know it was exactly when, at 1:32, something happened that will probably stay with me the rest of my life. Um, Something pushed near the foot of my tent where my toe was, and it shocked me, and it felt electrical, and my whole body jolted. And I felt it on my big toe. I was laying on my side. It felt on my big toe. And I thought, my adrenaline, something happened. I'm half asleep. I must have kicked something and jolted out of my sleep. You know how that happens to all of us every now and then, or like when you're falling in a dream. And I look down and there's nothing. There is nothing at the foot of my tent. My bag is to the side of me. And my foot is about 6 inches from the edge of the tent. And it felt as if something had poked me through the tent. And sweaty. Here we go. I start sweating. I start panicking. And all of a sudden, I felt this heavy presence in my chest. It's really hard to describe. And anybody that's felt this, I don't know if you can really describe it, but it felt like I was vibrating with electricity from the inside out. And I obviously am thinking it's my adrenaline, my heart's pumping, I'm scared, what's happening? And I've never had that feeling before. And I'm not a young guy, and I've been scared before. And this was a new feeling. And I remember having that feeling, wondering what the heck it could be. And I hadn't researched what that feeling is. And I'll get to that in a second. But I now know, after doing that research, what it was. But as I was feeling that electricity feeling, it shot from my chest area down inside. It felt like it was inside me, not on my skin, down to that toe where I had been touched. And it was the weirdest feeling, and I can't describe it. And I don't know what it is. And it may just be a bodily reaction to fear. That could be what it was. And I'm open to that. I'm also open to what else it could have been. And so I brought that up the next day, and I said, hey, I felt this thing at 1:32 in the morning. And I talked to another person that was there, and he's, I'll just say he's a type of engineer. He's a very scholarly gentleman who does research and a lot of parabolic sound listening, audio in the woods. And he goes, oh, but I didn't tell him what time. Actually, that came later. I said, hey, I felt something last night. Can I talk to you about it? And I just met this guy. And he said, well, last night at 1:32, and my jaw dropped. He goes, at 1:32 in the morning, I saw 2 glowing balls outside my tent. I said, what? Glowing balls? I thought, oh my God, now we're going paranormal, weird stuff. He goes, I saw 2 glowing balls, and I believe it was a mother and daughter. And I believe they were here checking out the camp. And I heard some steps, and then they were gone. And I said, I woke up at 1:32, or came out of whatever if I was in a sleep or whatever. And I felt something at 1:32 in the morning. And his tent was about 100 feet away from mine. So again, I don't know what that was. Were we both seeing things at the same time? Were we in sync with each other? I don't know. But then I talked to another person who was there, and she said, yeah, at about 1:30, it was around 1:30, 1:15, 1:30, I felt that there was something in camp with us. And that's when, again, I thought, okay, these guys are screwing with me. They're playing hoaxes on me. These are not those kinds of people. Like I said earlier, these are not the tree banging, I've got to find a Sasquatch and take pictures of it kind of people. These are the people who turn their cameras off. Maybe they listen with parabolic, but they don't take film because they want to experience and be part of the culture, be part of the existence. So that was my next event. And then at 4:52 a.m., I don't think I went back to sleep. I am tired as hell, but I don't think I went back to sleep. And so I thought maybe I'm falling asleep. I don't know what's going on. I felt that electricity hit again. It's still dark out. And something happened where I thought, I'm going to jolt. Oh, I jolted awake. It didn't. What happened was I was laying near the side of the tent, facing inward on my left side. And all of a sudden, my entire upper body shot backwards about 6 inches, as if somebody had tied a rope around my waist and pulled me, or around my chest and pulled me. And I thought, I jolted awake or something like that. But in order to move, you have to push against something. It's centrifugal force or whatever you call it, cause and reaction. You have to push against something it's why if you're floating in space, you can't just move yourself because there's nothing to push against, right? And I moved and I felt like I was pulled to the side of the tent and I was up. That was my waking point. I sat up. I said, I'm not going. I'm awake. That's it. And I just sat there for the rain dripping there. And I had been told, oh, be ready because you'll hear them playing with the tarps on top of the tent because they love the crinkly sound. Oh, thanks for setting me up for that. Right. You know, so then I hear this very famous person getting his coffee ready, talking about bacon, joking around about 5:30 when the sun just starts to come up and everything's gray and dark and the world is black and white as still. And I thought, oh, thank God, people are awake. I'm getting up. And that was my night. And that was the craziest night I can imagine I've had. You know, as a growing up as a Boy Scout and going out in the woods and everything, I've experienced some pretty fun, cool stuff, especially with older scouts playing pranks on me, jerks. But but you know, I've experienced those things, and I know the wilderness, I know the woods. I go hiking here once to twice a week. I do wild swimming in the waterfalls. I do everything I can just to be in nature. And so the day goes by and some people were filming a documentary with this very famous person for an upcoming webinar event that they were hosting. And during that time, my Yakima elder friend said, well, I'm going for a walk. I said, you know what? I'm coming with you. And I thought, wow, I should be sitting here watching this person speak. I said, no, how often do you get to go into the woods with an elder from a Native American tribe whose job is to be in the woods and knows so much? So we went off and we just walked. We walked for an hour and he taught me all about tree breaks. We found 3 of them. You see all these pictures of tree breaks around. And again, I'm not going to judge because it's not up for me to be that person to fit them in a box. If you believe you've seen one, you believe you've seen one. That's up to you, you know. But he showed me the difference between snowfall causing one, human causing one, how the splinters are different if it's made by Sasquatch or if it's made by man-made, where you can find them. We looked at the area around trees where a sentinel or a sentry would be looking out and why they would be looking out where they are, peeking at the road when you look down and see where the family might be foraging or eating. So it was very much getting into some very cool aspects of the nature and existence of Sasquatch. And I felt like I was on a National Geographic little documentary thing, or like somebody like Bear Grylls or Les Stroud is pulling me along saying, hey, check this out, you know, but there's this native approach to it. And again, that's the premise of where I'm trying to write my book too, with respect to the native cultures. So we go back and we're sitting around the fire. It's about noon. And we're all sitting around and listening to more stories of my friend who's very good friends with this very famous person. And they're telling stories. And from behind them, I hear this thump, 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 thump. And it's still quiet, except every now and then you hear a crow circling. And I had learned that crows, what they'll do, they're very smart. I had no idea that they have the memory of like a 3-year-old child or the intelligence of a 3-year-old child, and they remember things. I had no idea. These are really cool facts I'm learning. And they will often circle when they see something below moving. So usually hunters will listen to, I'm not a hunter, but I've heard that they'll listen to crows or other birds that are circling to see where there may be elk or deer or grouse or whatever they're hunting for. So I thought, okay, there's something up there. But to hear that thump, 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 thump. So we walked. I looked at the other guy that was holding a camera. This is the gentleman that also saw the balls of light the night before. He's holding a camera, trying to focus on the people being interviewed. I'm holding my little camera, kind of getting a little bit, and we look at each other and we nod and we look back at each other. And so after we turned the cameras off, I walked up to where the thump, 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 thump was. And I found a rock about the size of a softball that had not been, it was freshly placed there. Now, whether a bird was carrying a softball-sized rock and dropped it on us, I've never heard of that before. That's interesting. Or a bear can walk on 2 feet and throw like a baseball. I don't know. But that rock came from somewhere. And we were not on a hillside, and it came, and that was, again, I can't explain that. And maybe my mind is making that up. But again, as I was able to confirm with other people that were there, yes, we in fact heard something. It sounded like thump, 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 thump. And I asked my friend, I said, why the rock throwing? Well, we don't know. We don't know why they throw rocks, but it could be warning, could be get out of my land. Or it could be, this was about 100 feet, maybe 200 feet away from us. It could be, hey, I'm here watching. I'm here. because I'm pretty sure that if something wanted to throw a rock and hit us, it would have been very easy to do it. So it may have just been, hey, everybody, I'm here. So that was my trip. That was quite mind bending. And since then, as I go hiking, I've actually come across two what I believe are juvenile footprints. I wish I had casting material with me. One of them is out near Elma, Washington, as you're driving out to Ocean Shores. I don't know if you've been out there, but you can go hike some waterfalls, very dark, very haunting areas, beautiful. And I went out there and I saw this area where I felt different, feeling that presence again. And I looked down and I saw a good 9-10 foot size footprint. And I sent a picture to my quote unquote experts in the field and got the message, oh, that is definitely a juvenile. So anyway, so that was my little camping trip. And so I came home, and about a week, maybe a couple of weeks later, I decided to sketch out what I saw, the silhouette. And I sent it to my native friend. He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, yeah, that's what I saw. I said, wait, you saw that? Why didn't you tell me? And why? And I don't know if that's when he saw it at that exact time, but he has a story that he's told me where it's the exact same posture, the exact same outline, and the leaning against. And so I think that's what he's referring to, that he's seen that posture before. And then the other feeling I had, I did a lot of research, and I heard about infrasound, but I went ahead and looked a little bit more because I cannot explain the vibrations I felt. I felt dizzy. I felt like I was losing it. I felt kind of sick to my stomach. And I looked up infrasound, and it's exactly what infrasound is. And many believe, whales speak through infrasound. I think it's whales or elephants. Sorry. Elephants speak through infrasound. These are decibels that humans can't hear. It's much lower. I guess lions. I didn't know lions have the ability to speak through infrasound, and these can travel very, very far. And so a lot of people say, oh yeah, Sasquatch uses infrasound. Not only do they have telepathy, but they have infrasound. And so I thought, oh, well, that would explain, if in fact that's what it was, that would explain what I was feeling. It would be infrasound. And so I do know that I felt something. I do know that it was not just made up in my mind. And I do know that there is something that's out there. But I will not flat out say I saw a Bigfoot. I just won't say it. I will say I saw a silhouette of what I think was a Bigfoot. I saw a rock, or I heard a rock be thrown. I felt infrasound. And this happened all in the most frequented area in the world, they say, of Sasquatch. And the next day, before I did leave, we found a 100-foot tall teepee structure. There's actually pictures of that on my Instagram page, video, which is where I do a lot of stuff that's Bigfoot related, Sasquatch related. We went down to the beach and saw hundreds of footprints. And this is in the middle of cold, autumn. And these are fresh footprints. And somebody was telling me, oh, you can come down here all the time and find footprints. They come out at night and they play, and you can see the little footprints running around rocks as if they're playing while mother's looking on. They found prints of the buttocks of Sasquatch that have sat there in the mud and watched. Just mind blowing to see all that. So, so many things happened that weekend that I can't explain. And one might say, oh, well, you were there and your brain was prepped for you to see all that. And you know what? They might be right. Maybe my brain was there. Maybe my imagination was going crazy. But I think I have a pretty good grasp on reality. And I think I can tell a difference between what I'm making up in my mind and what I'm experiencing, because I know I've made things up in my mind. We all have. We freak ourselves out all the time. Like, oh my God, I'm down in the kitchen getting a ham sandwich and a chair moved. Well, it was my stinking cat. It wasn't a poltergeist, So we do that in our minds. So that's kind of where I'm at. And so again, like I said, I'm not sure about the paranormal. I'm not sure about the balls of light, the orbs. I don't know about the portal travels. I don't know about the dimension. I am inclined to say I don't think that aliens have sent them down, which a lot of people do. And I am not shunning that idea at all, because every idea is valid. Every idea is valid because we don't know. and there's no reason we should be judging each other. This should be a community of help rather than a community of judgment. And I really find that it feels very judgmental out there. And that's why I won't share it very much, just because I want to be careful, So anyway, that's my story.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it with us. Have you gone out for like another kind of a Bigfoot expedition?
Oh, I don't know if I can right now. I think I will. I do think I will. I'm not scared anymore. And I go hiking by myself. And, I have bear spray with me. I don't care. I don't carry a gun. I don't even have a gun. I'm not anti-gun. I just don't have one, I also don't think that if I was carrying a 44 or anything, I don't think that would take down a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I think it would just kind of flick the bullet away and say, I'm coming. I do go out by myself. I've got kids, and I'll take them out hiking. They know about some of my experiences. I'm very reluctant to tell them everything because I want them to enjoy the wilderness. But my office where I write my book, I'm a painter now too, and I have about 12 paintings of different aspects of the book, and they're all Sasquatch related. So my kid has her drum set in here, and I said, "Why don't you go drumming today? Why aren't you drumming?" And I finally said, "Is it because they're Sasquatch paintings?" She goes, "Dad, it's kind of no." And so I will go out again. I'm actually going to go camping with this friend again soon. He has got some amazing stories, and I asked him once, I said, "You've experienced things over the past 25 years, hundreds," and I know it sounds crazy, but hundreds of sightings, hundreds, because he's out working in the trees. Are you scared? And he says, "I'm always fearful that I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not scared for my life." But that's like if you see a bear. If you see a bear in the distance, immediately you think, okay, first thing you think, am I a safe distance? Yes. Okay, I'm going to stay and watch. Am I a safe distance? No. What is my escape plan? That's what you do. And so he feels very safe about it. I'm not scared, but I'm haunted. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And I think a lot of that has to...
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the feelings I had inside in my chest, and the infrasound is really what did it to me. It wasn't even seeing what I know was a silhouette of something. It wasn't even that. It was the feeling inside me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Has anyone been able to kind of capture this infrasound on tape with maybe special equipment?
I don't know. And I've looked for that. It's very difficult because we can't hear it by the human ear, but we can, if we look at it, you can look at the different sound waves. And I think that's what you're referring to. There's people that do it it's all over YouTube. People are going out there. I know Ron Moorhead, who filmed it in the Sierra Nevadas, has got that great audio, very highly debated audio of them speaking to each other. And he dives into the paranormal very much so. The quantum physics of Bigfoot is very interesting. Whether I agree or don't agree, I don't really have an opinion on that. That's his journey. It's not my journey. He can have whatever journey he wants, So I would like to see that. I'd like to see any kind of recording, and maybe look at the effects it has. I want to know the effects it has on. I want to have my dog listen to it, see what happens. I've got a black lab, see what happens to him, Yeah. He'd probably love it.
Yeah. And did you think that the balls of light, do you think that those were the Sasquatch, like in changed form?
Well, here's the deal. I didn't see them. So
okay. Yes, that's right. Yes.
I use my book that I'm writing, my magical realism, fantasy, sci-fi, young adult horror book. I'm still trying to figure out the genre because it's everything. I use the balls of light. I use quantum physics. I use the paranormal. I use portals. It's awesome. But I don't use it because this exists. I use it because it is an aspect of Bigfoot and Sasquatch that's out there, So I don't know. Who's to say? I don't poo-poo it at all. Who's to say that they can't travel through portals? Who's to say that they can't, travel as as balls of light? Just because we can't transform like that, well, why can't they? If they're different beings, if they are in fact as many native cultures believe, if they believe these are the first humans and we are the offshoot of those humans because we we embraced fire technology as in pots and pans and then became who we are, then who's to say that our brains haven't developed and cut some of that out? We aren't to say that. We don't know. We don't know. There's no documented history of that. So that's a big thing within the Sasquatch community. And I'm sure you've heard that before about the balls of light. I didn't see them. I don't know. I thought it was weird that it happened at the exact same time as mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever, this may be too personal, but do you ever dream of this experience? It seems like something that I would probably live over in my dreams.
No. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I would think I would too, because my dreams are always tied to my past or my future or where I'm at. No, I haven't had a dream about this. I haven't even thought about that. Isn't that weird? Yeah, I should. If it had such a big impact on me, I don't know, maybe talking to you, maybe I'm going to have a dream about it tonight. Who knows? I'm trying to look into lucid dreaming.
I was thinking, I'm going to have a dream about this tonight.
Right. I'm trying to learn more about lucid dreaming, which is very cool. It's how you can awake. Yeah. You know it. Yeah. Where you're aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. And I still haven't been able to do that. Boy, wouldn't that be amazing if this came to me in a lucid dream? Oh man. Now you've given me something to think about.
Yeah. Well, it's an absolutely fascinating story. If people want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Well, I have an Instagram. I hate to say this. I'm not a big Facebooker. I don't have Facebook. I left that, and I think everybody understands. I think most of us have left it. But my Instagram is PNW. That's P as in Paul. PNW Sasquatch Shadows. And I just post different experiences I have. I post little videos I took at that little excursion to Bumping Lake. There's a lot of videos there. I dive into what could be out there. It's really not, hey, look what I know. It's, hey, this is kind of about my life journey. Even this morning I was posting pictures of I traveled to Tibet for 10 days and I thought, no, I'll just share that a little bit. And that was an amazing life-changing experience. And so it's not just about Sasquatch. However, that is the premise. I will post things about what I've experienced. But that goes to something else. I actually have a podcast launching in 9 days and I'm really excited for it. But it's different. It's literally 7 to 10 minutes long. And I don't talk. I talk at the end, I think, saying, hey, if you want to get in contact, that's me. But it's 7 to 10 minutes long. And I have hours and hours of testimony from this is my Native American friend that I went camping with. And he gave me permission to post these. Again, I won't say his name. And I won't divulge my full name either, just because, you have to think about that as you go out there, but eventually I know I will. I'm not scared of it. I just want to keep it what it is. And so he tells these stories. So what I do is I just set them to, some creepy music and stuff. So the whole point of that is to let people listen to a 5 to 7, maybe 10-minute long story. If they're taking their kid to school, well, maybe they can listen after they drop their kid off. But anyway, as they're driving to the grocery store, as they're, not to be gross, as they're in the bathroom, as they're doing the dishes, whatever, as they're doing some kind of job. That's why I created this. So it's a very different kind of podcast. It's a eyewitness podcast that people just tell their story and that's it.
So where can people find this awesome new podcast when it arrives?
Sure. So it will be available on March 29th. That could have happened already, depending on this. But it's on anywhere you listen to podcasts. All you just do is type in something cryptid this way comes, a little play off of a little Shakespeare there. And actually, if you just type in something cryptid, then it will show up and it'll be the first hit there. And there's a big green Native American looking Sasquatch on the cover. And then you can also go to PNW Sasquatch Shadows on YouTube. I'll be posting the videos on there if people want to watch, just seeing pictures of it locally. And I'll also doing updates on the Instagram page, PNW Sasquatch Shadows.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this fantastic story. I really, really look forward to this new podcast. I'm very intrigued with the stories and also the short form. There's lots of shows, well, like mine, that are rather long. It's easier to listen to the short ones to fit them in.
Yeah. My favorite thing to do is listening to the longer ones when I'm mowing the lawn or out weeding. I just love it. It's fantastic. It's something to listen to as you're going. I'll never just sit down and listen to a podcast. So I really appreciate what you're doing. And I've listened to your first shows here, and they're fantastic. I really appreciate them. And I love how you listen to people. You don't just drill them with questions. You actually listen. You don't subject your opinion, although I'd love to hear it someday. But you ask people. And I think that is the true essence of a good interviewer. So thanks for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying the podcast and mystery. If you like this show and you'd like to help it grow, would you please tell a friend about the show? I'm not a celebrity, so my podcast hasn't gotten instantly popular. I'm also not rich, so I can't buy ads anywhere. But what I can do is produce the best podcast I can and hope people will like it enough to tell a friend. So if you like this show, would you please consider telling a friend about it? Word of mouth is the number one way people discover new podcasts. I'm sure you know of at least one other person who would dig this show. Maybe it's your sister or brother or a coworker, whoever it is. If you think they will like this show, they probably will. So, what are you waiting for? Go tell a friend about the Podcast of Mystery.
Well, my name is Josh Moss, and I'm a Bigfoot researcher, I guess, in the Pacific Northwest. And in my professional life, I'm a GIS specialist. So that means I work with data and maps. And I'm not going to say, exactly where I work because, sometimes Bigfoot gives you a weird reputation, if you know what I mean. But I do that in my professional life. So I thought, why not, as a little hobby, see if I could get some data about Bigfoot that I could display on maps and see if I could find any trends, because oftentimes this is exactly how biologists go about studying known species, and it's how biologists go about identifying new species. So I thought if that's how real, scientists do this work, I might as well try to apply that to Bigfoot, sort of, because Bigfoot community, as I'm sure if you've interviewed any Bigfoot people, they often say, scientists won't listen to us. Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I kind of am a scientist, so I wanted to sort of be that scientist that would listen and try to actually do some little experiments with my skill set on data related to Bigfoot sightings.
And for listeners that maybe aren't familiar, would you mind giving them kind of like a very basic introduction to what GIS is?
Oh, okay, yeah. So GIS is basically any kind of computer software that allows you to tie information into geography. So it's any kind of technology that allows you to tie data such as, data about people's identities or data about what kind of species live where or whatever, and you can tie that into a GPS point. And so as you can imagine, this technology is behind a lot of our daily lives at this point. Everything from Uber Eats to a lot of applications with like the military and law enforcement to advertising to environmental concerns, anything you could think of, like a lot of things on your phone use this technology. So, yeah.
Yeah. And where have you gotten the actual raw data from?
Okay. So I actually, I thought, oh, maybe I could do this. And it's like, well, where would I get that data? So I emailed a figure everyone in the Bigfoot community will know, Cliff Barackman. I just emailed him out of the blue, one of the stars of Finding Bigfoot. I had no idea he'd email me back, but he did. And he suggested to me a website that had where someone else had mapped a large amount of the BFRO Bigfoot sightings, as well as some others, onto Google Earth. And so I was able to go to Google Earth and basically extract that data. And so that's where I got it. And so I do, on my maps, I put credit to that person. I believe that website is called Mangani's Bigfoot Maps. I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but I think if you Google that, then you want to find that Google Earth data. It's Mangani's Bigfoot Maps.
And so with this data and with GIS, what kind of data or images or maps do you end up creating?
Well, so basically what I'll do is I'll come up with an idea. And actually, I do have to give some more credit to Cliff Brockman, because he kind of suggested a few ideas to me as well. So not all the ideas that I've mapped so far are mine, but basically I think about Bigfoot and what people have said about Bigfoot and what Bigfoot does and how it behaves. And I think of, basically I take the Bigfoot data and I think, well, what can I compare it to on the landscape? So like one of the ideas that Cliff suggested was comparing it to food crops. So like I compare the places where Bigfoot sightings occur to areas where food crops are grown, because some people have theorized that Bigfoots, will steal food crops as part of their diet. So I did that comparison in the area of Western Washington, which is obviously, as you know, it's one of the hot spots for Bigfoot. And with that one, I found that the percentage was, like something like 20% of, I don't have that one in front of me, but something like 20% of Bigfoot sightings occurred within half a mile of a food crop. So to me, that doesn't really, it doesn't say that Bigfoots don't ever avail themselves of crops as part of their diet, but it doesn't say that they always do. And that's what I kind of love about these maps is, they're very objective. You throw the data down and you see what the result is. So
this seems like a lot of work. What kind of drives your interest in Bigfoot?
Well, I have always been, just like many Bigfoot enthusiasts, I guess. As a kid, I was watching reruns of In Search of, narrated by Leonard Nimoy, and of all the different subjects that they covered, I kind of got hooked on Bigfoot. I love the wilderness and the woods. Part of my job in the past has been doing field work. And I would spend months, just walking through the woods in various wilderness areas. It's just as part of my job. And it was almost like I was being paid to squatch, although I was doing my job as well. But so my love of nature and just the idea that there's a mysterious animal out there has always just captivated me. And I do think, it was those classic TV shows about it that gave me the spark, probably, and books about it that I read when I was a kid. I just became fascinated by it, read and watched everything I could get my hands on with it. And it was scary to me too. And I do like to camp out and go backpacking a lot, but even sometimes, I'll be honest, I'm sometimes still like, oh, is a Bigfoot going to come around my campsite tonight? Even though I will say, I'm not 100% sure I believe that Bigfoots exist, but the idea can be scary and just intriguing.
So going through all this data and making these maps, are there any interesting insights about Bigfoot that you've learned?
Well,
or if, so it's based on the sightings.
Yeah. So, with the caveat that Bigfoots really might not exist, I have to put that in there, because like I said, I am a scientist, and as a scientist, I know that I'm satisfied that they exist. But I did in preparing for this interview, I brought up a couple of maps that I thought had interesting correlations. And One was a map I did for Pierce County, Washington, with the proximity to confirmed salmon streams. So I took only the summer and fall Bigfoot sightings because that's the salmon season. So that's the season that the salmon are up in the streams of Washington spawning. And it turns out that 42% of the Bigfoot sightings in summer and fall occurred within 1 mile of a known salmon spawning stream. So I thought that was pretty significant. To me, that suggests like if Bigfoots exist, a 42% correlation there is pretty strong. And to me, that suggests like they probably do like to eat salmon. So I had another interesting one pulled up, which was one I did for Florida. And this is like one of the more complex ones I did. And this is like, so sightings in Florida by their proximity to the road, but also to the, also I did a rating of how busy the road was.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a 3-factor map. And what I found was that only 8 of 329 sightings, so that's 2%, occurred within 1 mile of a high traffic road, which I thought was really interesting because some people will have said to me about these maps, well, Bigfoot sightings, you know, more will happen where more people are. Well, but that seems to slightly go against that. And then 79% occurred within 1 mile of a low traffic road or farther than a mile from any road. So that's almost 80% occurred basically as far as possible away from people based on roads. So what that said to me, like this map, I thought of all the maps I've made, this map said something possibly about Bigfoot behavior, which is that Bigfoots do consciously avoid people. I thought maybe, you know, of all the maps I made, that one seemed to be able to say something. And, you know, I'm pretty conservative. Like I'll make these maps and if they don't say something, I'm not going to try to read too much into it. Sometimes they just don't say anything. But that was one I thought that had a significant correlation.
So like you said, a lot of researchers say, you know, that scientists don't want to look into this phenomenon. And here you are, a scientist, and you are looking at this phenomenon. You're actually putting out, you know, maps and, you know, actual scientific research about this stuff. How has that Bigfoot community reacted to you?
You know, I've had some people definitely seem to like it. I haven't had like a huge immediate reaction, which, you know, I kind of did not expect to. And I'll tell you why. It's because the nature of like doing kind of science with the data, it's not as immediately interesting as like some of the ways that other Bigfoot evidence is presented. It just isn't, you know, it just doesn't grab you like a footprint cast or a video of a potential Bigfoot or a really intriguing photograph that could be a Bigfoot. It takes more, it's like harder to digest. So I didn't necessarily expect a huge response, but I like the response I've gotten. I basically just like communicating with Bigfoot enthusiasts if they are interested in what I've made, or if they want to suggest like an experiment to do with the data, or if they actually have data of their own that they'd like to share with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mentioned that's probably one of your bigger challenges is getting more and more data. Like that's kind of, as far as I know, as far as GIS goes, like that data is kind of the core, the heart of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the raw material, you know, you can make insights from it. So that's a kind of a good segue because I recently was able to collaborate with another person who was kind of like-minded with me, who's made their own slightly higher quality, well, I shouldn't say slightly, it's actually much higher quality sightings database. And this guy, he goes by @SquatcherMetrics on Instagram and Twitter. He has created a database that has a lot of different data points in it for each sighting. He's got what he calls sighting confidence, which I think is a rating of, how high quality the sighting is. He has latitude and longitude for each sighting, which allows me to interact with the data. He has elevation data for each sighting, which I'm working on a 3D map of it, which I think is just fun. And so I've been able to collaborate with him. And the first collaboration we did was he gave me his data for Colorado, which was a state I hadn't looked at yet. And I compared it to the bear range. And this is interesting because a lot of skeptics, so I think the most easy thing for skeptics to go to, and I have a lot of sympathy for this, is, well, it's a bear. And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of sightings are probably misidentified bears. So I did this Colorado analysis, and I overlaid the Bigfoot sightings with Colorado's black bear range. And 124 out of 126 sightings did occur within the black bear range. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But that still does not, to me, necessarily mean that every Bigfoot sighting is a black bear. I just thought that's a very strong correlation.
Yeah. We could make an argument that also their range might overlap. The conditions that make good bear habitat might also make good Sasquatch habitat.
Exactly. That is the other conclusion you could draw from that.
So how have other kind of scientists and other people in maybe GIS, I don't know if you've told them, I imagine you've told some people about your project. How have they reacted?
I have told like some of my coworkers about it that I'm closer to, just like a chuckle, They kind of know I like Bigfoot and kind of the Bigfoot culture. And so they just, basically just kind of a chuckle, So no one that I have ever worked with. And so I've been as some kind of environmental scientist for almost 15 years. And I don't think I've ever worked with anyone who even harbored a slight willingness to believe in Bigfoot.
Oh, really? That's very surprising.
Yeah. I might be exaggerating, but I feel like that's probably, if I did work with anyone who did believe in Bigfoot, they weren't talking about it much.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It seems like, as far as, all, if you look at all paranormal phenomenon, Bigfoot seems to be the one that I feel like I would guess the most number of people would be willing to believe in. It's like so many people have had sightings, and some people have had weird experiences in the woods where they can't quite explain what happened. And in the back of their mind, they might be like, was that Bigfoot?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's part of what keeps me fascinated by it and makes me want to spend a little time doing this as a hobby, is like, of all the cryptids, it's by far the most possible. Aside from like the thylacine and those ones that maybe just recently went extinct, you know what I mean? The Bigfoot is just, I shouldn't say Bigfoots, they're so right on the edge of reality. And I'm also just fascinated by the community of people that are so dedicated to it. And yeah, so that kind of inspires me to make a little hobby out of using my skill set to do some sort of computer-based investigation on it. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about or considered using these skills for another paranormal phenomenon, like maybe, like UFOs maybe?
I actually have done a few UFO maps.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah. I've done some UFO maps, just UFOs on their own. And then I've done some where as you can probably imagine, I compared UFO sightings to Bigfoot sightings.
Yeah.
A couple sort of other paranormal creators have inspired me on the Bigfoot UFO maps. And if I could throw those names out there, it's have you ever watched any of the Small Town Monsters?
Yeah,
movies?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, so they made a movie called Invasion on Chestnut Ridge,
Okay.
which was based on the work of the researcher Stan Gordon. And his work is a lot about UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings that are connected in Pennsylvania. So his work is based in Pennsylvania, and if you look at the sightings that he records, a large number of them sort of have a Bigfoot UFO. They have both components. So the Small Town Monsters movie, Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, which I'd highly recommend, deals with that. It deals with sort of the extraterrestrial Bigfoot angle. And it specifically, geographically, is related to Pennsylvania. And as an aside, that's something I really love about Small Town Monsters. Since I am a geography person, each one of their movies is very tied to a place. It's about a specific geographical location. That's one thing that makes me like their movies a lot. But anyway, so I did this map of Pennsylvania where I did compare UFO and Bigfoot sightings. And my finding was that 28 out of 636 Bigfoot sightings were within 1 mile of a UFO sighting. So not that significant of a correlation, but the majority of those were in southwestern Pennsylvania, which is the Chestnut Ridge area. So it is the area in which a lot of those sightings that have both those components were recorded by Stan Gordon. So I thought that was kind of cool.
So going through all this data and seeing, all these sightings on a map, were there any locations that kind of surprised you? I know that, a lot of people see, or some people see, Bigfoot in Florida. As someone from Washington State, that always strikes me as very, very strange. So I always think of Bigfoot as being a very Northwest creature. Are there any locations where you saw sightings that kind of surprised you?
Yes, actually, I was thinking about this one the other day because I didn't. Someone on Twitter had asked me, can you do a map of North Carolina sightings? And I was like, sure. And I expected there to be some, especially in the western part of the state, along the Appalachian Mountains, because people see a lot of Bigfoots in the Appalachian Mountains. But when I did the map, there's a surprising amount in the Outer Banks, and I don't know what that's about. I can't imagine there's Bigfoots in the Outer Banks. Yeah, so that one surprised me.
And did you come across any kind of as you've just been kind of maybe going over the raw data, maybe any kind of anomalies that you want to dig further into, but you're maybe not sure how to do it?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I mean, I have gotten some suggestions about sort of deeper analyses to try to correct for, and this gets a little heady, but to try to correct for the fact that each sighting point has, in theory, a Bigfoot and a human component. So to try to remove the human component from the statistical analysis by using other mathematical methods to weight certain things differently so that you could make more observations about Bigfoot behavior independent of humans. And earlier you mentioned that what I was doing sounds like a lot of work, and what I just described was kind of past the point where I wanted to go with it as far as how much work it would be.
So as someone who is, directly dealing with the kind of the sightings and reports and the data, how do you wish these sightings were kind of recorded? They're as a scientist.
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. So, like I said, I've been I've done a lot of field work. So the procedure for recording an incident or a find, is very much on my mind. So if someone has a sighting, what I think they should do is, first of all, if they can, take a GPS point. If you have an app on your phone that lets you drop a point, do that. But failing that, at least take a picture of the area, because your phone will record the GPS point of that picture, and somebody like me could extract that from the metadata of that picture if you wanted to, if you wanted that sighting to be mappable. So at the very least, take a picture. It will provide that GPS point, if you want to go through extracting it from the metadata to get it. And it'll just provide visual context of like where you were. And so if all you have is a sighting, that's the key, I would say, is just take a picture. But if you find something that you think is evidence, and I'm not the first, person to say this, but when you take a picture of it, you have to use a scale item. You can't just take a picture of the supposed evidence that you found with nothing by which to gauge its size. So I would say that's the other extremely important thing. If you've gone out and you're not prepared and you don't have anything on you, those are the two things you could do, I would say, is take a picture, and if you're taking a picture of evidence, put something by it to compare its size to.
And kind of along this line, do you have any places where you recommend people send their UFO, or their Bigfoot sightings to? Any kind of like clearinghouse or database?
Well, yeah, I mean, the BFRO, I guess I don't see why that wouldn't be a good recommendation. They seem to collect the sightings pretty well. I don't know that they do the whole GPS points thing every time, but like you said, a lot of work. I don't know that a lot of people are getting paid to do this stuff. So since that's the case, I think the BFRO does a pretty good job collecting Bigfoot sightings, and that would be where I would send people. I mean, but if you collect GPS points on a sighting, you're welcome to send it to me, and I would add it to the database that I have.
And I have to ask, have you ever yourself seen anything that you thought may have been Bigfoot, or have you even gone on any of these like kind of Bigfoot expeditions or camping trips?
Well, I've never gone on a Bigfoot expedition, formally led by someone else, but I've gone kind of on a lot of camping trips and backpacking trips by myself. I actually through hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2007, and I've done a lot of backpacking here in the Pacific Northwest. And honestly, I consider it a squatching trip every time I go backpacking, because I'm always looking for potential evidence. And some things that people call evidence, I've certainly seen, like the tree X's and tree breaks and things that look like nests where trees and brush are all piled up. I've certainly seen those kind of things a lot. Am I 100% convinced that those are evidence of Bigfoot? Personally, I'm not. But still, if I see those things, I do take pictures of them and so forth. But I personally have never seen a Bigfoot or a track, and so I've spent a lot of time in the woods, and I have yet to have my own kind of experience as far as that goes.
Now, you said, you're not even really sure if Bigfoot exists. Do you have any kind of theories about maybe the nature of Bigfoot? That's often something that we discuss a lot of, is this actually a real like biological creature, or could it be something else? Or you leave that speculation for other people?
This might be disappointing, but I'm going to have to say I leave that speculation for other people. There's always a new horizon to be discovered. So I have not seen evidence that makes me fall hard on what Bigfoot could be if it exists. I leave that. Yeah, I'd have to let other people speculate on that for now. I mean, based on what you see, it seems to be some kind of bipedal creature that people can see at times, and that leaves tracks at times. That's as much as I can say from what I can empirically observe.
Yeah. A true scientist.
Well, that's how I try to approach it.
Well, I find your work just absolutely fascinating. If people want to learn more about you and your GIS, your maps, and your data, where should they go?
Well, I'm basically just on Twitter and Instagram, and my DMs are open on both those things. If you would want to ask me a question or send me Bigfoot information that you have found. So it's on Twitter, it's at PNW Bigfoot Maps, and it's at PNW Bigfoot Maps on Instagram too, but there's underscores between PNW, Bigfoot, and Maps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes. I'll make sure I have those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today and for the work you're doing. I mean, I think this is potentially like really, really groundbreaking work.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate the chance to talk about it. Like I said, I just kind of have a love for the Bigfoot community, and I thought I saw a way to sort of make a contribution with my skill set that I didn't see other people doing. Although I do want to say that I was inspired by a classic Bigfooter. I just want to squeeze this in at the end. If you remember, there's a Bigfoot documentary where there's a fella like playing drums in the snow. Do you know that one?
No, I don't think so.
It's from the 90s. Well, anyway, this fella's name is, let me just one second. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. This guy's name is, Henry Franzoni. And, the movie that I was talking about is called Sasquatch Odyssey, The Hunt for Bigfoot. It came out in 1999. But anyway, this guy, Henry Franzoni, he's also an environmental scientist, and he was a GIS. He used GIS to study Bigfoot back in the 90s. And I had heard him talk about it on a podcast, and it spurred me on to do it because I was like, GIS technology was very rudimentary in the 90s. And I wonder what I could maybe try to do with it now. And I just wanted to mention Henry Franzoni because when I heard him say that, it gave me the idea.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That gave me a new documentary to check out.
Oh yeah. It's classic.
I'll see if it brings back any memories from the late 90s.
It's classic. You'll enjoy it. It's not too serious, it's got a sense of humor and also just some classic Squatch information.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. I appreciate that.
I'm Jason Rigdon, and you have been listening to episode number 7 of the Podcast of Mystery, originally transmitted on Monday, April 19th, 2021. If you'd like more information about me, the show, or my guests, please visit podcastandmystery.com. Tune in next Friday when we will be talking with the world-renowned psychic medium Mark Anthony. If you have a guest or a topic that you would like to hear on this show, please email podofmystery@gmail.com. You can also email any feedback or comments to that same address. This audio program is copyrighted by me, Jason Rigdon, in 2021 and is freely available under the Creative Commons Attribution License.